Nha Trang and Tuy Hoa entered one of the most severe flood events in recent decades, as heavy rainfall settled over the region for 3 continuous days. By early morning on the 20th of November, water in several neighborhoods of Nha Trang climbed to an estimated 3.5 meters. Streets, homes, and commercial areas disappeared beneath fast-rising water as local authorities issued high-level warnings. The Provincial Hydrometeorological Agency reported that river levels surged with unusual speed, signaling conditions that could surpass historical records. Communities that had never experienced deep flooding found themselves surrounded by fast-moving water before sunrise. The slow-moving storm delivered intense rainfall that fell without pause, overwhelming rivers and drainage systems. Within hours, areas considered elevated and safe became submerged. The vicinity of the Go supermarket in Nha Trang, normally a busy commercial zone, saw water spread across parking lots and surrounding streets. At the traffic junction of Ngoc Hoi, water pushed across the roadway at daybreak. Residential districts such as Vinh Diem Trung recorded widespread flooding as river water spilled into the entire neighborhood. Along the corridor of 23 Thang Moi Road near Dien Can, water reached halfway up the walls of many homes. Footage captured at 7 in the morning showed residents wading through deep water to reach higher ground. Only one day earlier, water along the same road had been shallow rising just above the knees of most adults. By dawn, the flood had transformed the entire area into a long channel of moving water. In Vinh Diem Trung, dozens of parked vehicles were lifted and carried across streets as the flood accelerated. The Dinh Ninh Hoa River rose rapidly and was projected to reach between 6.65 and 6.80 meters within the next 24 hours. That level could exceed the historic flood of 1986 by a margin ranging from 0.07 to 0.22 meters. Hydrological stations in the region reported that the situation remained unstable and that river levels could continue rising even as rainfall began to ease. For many residents, the water began creeping into homes shortly before midnight on the 19th of November. By 5 in the morning the next day, water climbed high enough to reach vehicle rooftops in several parts of western Nha Trang. In Vinh Diem Trung, families reported staying awake through the night as the waterline moved higher up their walls. Some residents described the flood as the worst they had ever witnessed in the area. At the CT1 Duong Sat apartment building located inside the Vinh Diem Trung urban zone, water entered the first-level parking area around 4 in the morning. Residents shouted warnings through hallways as they moved their motorbikes and bicycles to the second level in an attempt to prevent damage. The rush to save vehicles took place under dim emergency lighting as water continued to rise beneath them. In Tuy Hoa, the situation remained critical. Entire blocks were cut off as water spread into homes, small shops, and low-lying streets. Residents around the Ho Dieu Hoa area were forced to climb to upper floors or onto rooftops while waiting for assistance. Many households lacked power-clean water and communication access. Footpaths and roads disappeared under a uniform sheet of muddy water. People walked through the current with difficulty holding onto walls and fences against the pressure of the flow. Families in lower sections of Tuy Hoa reported losing furniture, appliances, and personal belongings as water moved through their homes. Streets that normally served as busy commercial routes became silent, broken only by the sound of flowing water and distant voices calling out for help. Access roads to neighborhoods near Nguyen Hue and Hung Vuong were blocked as water rose beyond safe driving depth. Local governments in Can Hoa issued repeated alerts throughout the morning urging residents to avoid riverbanks and low-lying areas where conditions could deteriorate further. The provincial administration warned that mountain districts faced high risk of landslides due to prolonged saturation of soil layers. Emergency teams were placed on standby in regions where narrow valleys often channel sudden water surges during heavy rain. In Dak Lak, where the Ba River rose close to historic flood levels, the provincial chairman directed all wards and communes to mobilize personnel for protective measures. Local forces were tasked with assisting residents in evacuation, securing homes, and monitoring rapidly changing water levels. Teams inspected areas around the Hodieu-Hua zone as houses became submerged nearly to the roofline. Officials emphasized readiness for the worst-case scenario and instructed emergency units to maintain direct communication with residents. Hydro-meteorological offices in both provinces continued to track rainfall data and river readings, providing updates to emergency agencies. Authorities reminded the public not to attempt crossing flooded roads, noting that water depth and current strength could be difficult to assess. Traffic police redirected vehicles away from dangerous zones while commune-level teams prepared temporary shelters for isolated. By mid-morning, damage extended far beyond initial flood zones. Homes in multiple districts suffered structural impacts as water remained high for hours. Appliances, furniture, and stored goods were soaked or carried away. For many households, the cost of losses mounted quickly. In residential pockets near Hodieu-Hua, water reached windows and door frames, leaving families with little time to salvage belongings. Agricultural areas surrounding Tuy-Hua and parts of Dak Lak faced severe disruption. Floodwaters covered farmland and grazing areas, affecting crops and livestock. Local transportation networks were heavily impacted. Roads that connected the urban center of Tuy-Hua to surrounding communes became impassable. Buses and delivery vehicles halted service as water rose across intersections. Several sections of Leduan-Bak Dang and Nguyen Hui remained submerged. Motorists abandoned their vehicles along higher sections of road as water closed in. In Nha Trang, the speed of flooding caught many residents off guard, especially in neighborhoods where deep flooding had been rare in previous years. Side streets turned into narrow waterways, and bridges experienced strong surface flow from overflowing rivers. Shops remained shuttered as business owners confronted waterlogged goods. Small restaurants and markets that relied on morning customers found themselves unable to open. Community resources shifted toward supporting immediate needs such as transport, temporary shelter, and communication assistance. Families separated during the night attempted to reunite as soon as conditions allowed. Environmental concerns also grew as floodwaters carried debris, household waste, and sediments across large areas. Prolonged inundation threatened to create stagnant pools that could affect sanitation and local ecosystems. Local officials noted that recovery would take time even after water levels receded. Authorities cautioned that river levels across several basins could continue fluctuating throughout the next 24 hours. Even in areas where water appeared to withdraw slightly by 9 in the morning, officials warned that sudden upstream releases or additional rainfall could push levels back up. Residents were strongly advised not to return to flooded homes until safety checks were conducted. Emergency services urged people to avoid traveling through flooded intersections, especially in zones where the current remained strong. Mountain districts were placed under continued landslide alert as saturated slopes posed unstable conditions. Coastal communities were asked to monitor announcements from local agencies and stay prepared for possible evacuation. Official updates and guidance were made available through provincial information channels, ensuring that residents could track changes in weather and river conditions. Recovery efforts would proceed once water levels stabilized, but for the moment, safety remained the primary concern.